I suppose from my perspective, we work with students, graduates every day, and one of the biggest issues that can come up is, and a lot of you have started your businesses sort of during studies, but also shortly after graduation, and it'd be really good to hear from you what the biggest challenges are in terms of balancing that, getting your studies done, but also running your business, and how you've managed to sort of deal with that without compromising either. So I don't know who wants to take that one first.
Hello.
Oh, you're on.
Hello. That's all good. I think the challenges are, essentially trying to be a lot more organized. That's where, for me, it was, is how can I be more organized so I can still finish my studies and still work on what I really want to do after. I think it's a really smart idea, in my opinion, to start looking at business options, or whether that is starting up a business. And it's quite lucky, I guess, in a sense, to have this support system, because you could actually spend an hour every day, essentially, during the week from Monday to Friday, just diving into seeking advice from the people at Spark House, the enterprise building, because you've got the option to do that now. Unlike before, I graduated in 2013, that option was based on discipline, researching and trying to find out more about the industry I wanted to go into. And so if you're diving into it every day and spending some time into it, you're going to find ways in which for me anyway, I found ways in which I realized I was super passionate about really doing this business, because I really wanted to get it done. And that allowed me to be more organized, which meant that there were certain things in my life that I didn't have to do anymore. I mean, I still went out every single night, but I think what I didn't do really is, I wasn't complacent, I wasn't staying in bed too long, and I was spending that time doing a bit more research. And because there were gaps in my lectures into seminars, I knew not to maybe go back home and just chill and relax. That was, I'd organize that into my calendar as a time to search a bit more about the business and the information that I needed to know to grow it. So that's what I did personally.
Kind of, you summed it up perfectly, but what I will say is there is three of us, so we're in a bit of a different situation to you. We kind of specialised in something completely different to one another. So our workload was naturally less, but what I will say is you're probably in the best position right now to start a business as a student, because even though you've got to balance two things, it's a lot easier to balance student work than balancing working full-time and creating a business.
Does this work? Yeah, this does work, yeah. One of the things we found that was probably the hardest was that it wasn't necessarily balancing starting a business with being a student. It was more, you don't want to take any money out of your business at the start to pay yourself. You want to keep it all in. So how do you then make money, study, and keep doing your business? So one of the biggest things, we all had part-time jobs when we were starting. We were students starting business and had a part-time job, because we just could not afford to take any money out of the business. And I think that was probably the hardest part, especially when you feel like you've made it, but you're still working for someone else, or you're still working part-time for someone else, not making loads of money. But that's probably the most important thing. And you learn different things. You increase your confidence going out there and getting a job. You learn different skills dealing with different people, and every skill really can come back into being an entrepreneur, really. So.
And in terms of accessing support, you've already talked about the support you've accessed from Spark House, some of you, and through the Student Enterprise Service. But mentorship, how important has that been to starting a business? I think I'll start with Dumi, because I know that you've accessed mentoring through Spark House, and that's been really important for your business journey. So if all of you could just tell us a bit about who's been helpful and how you'd recommend that in terms of other students starting businesses.
Yeah, mentoring saved my business, because when you're starting up your business, you are fighting a lot of the battles within your own self-esteem, your encouragement. And I didn't know how much of a hand I needed, because I believed in myself, and maybe I was driving the business based on my ego. I believed I could really make a business successful, but what I didn't realize is I really needed assistance, someone to talk to who can get my thoughts into more of a logistic way of thinking about something in a practical manner. So for example, when I started my business, I just wanted to get it going, make it successful, make a lot of money, and employ a lot of people and make it impactful and have something that really people respect in a sense. But when I got a business mentor from Spark House, it was super helpful because what they did is they were able to align my goals with the reality of the situation. And so I took a lot of steps back, and a business mentor really allowed me to structure my days a bit better, which would help each year become a little bit more successful than just driving it with my ego, essentially, of what I believe I can do. So certainly Simon, who apparently is my dad these days, I speak to him all the time, essentially gives me a lot of advice. And Charlotte, who also was patient enough with me to understand and help me align my structure from just being a business idea to the reality of what I could do. I found value in that personally.
Is this one working? Yeah, so I think I lent in a lot and learnt a lot from working alongside the enterprise team. And I was very lucky on the Santander Growing Graduate event that I did, because we had a lot of guidance support from the Santander team as well. I think you can't underestimate enough having somebody who's going to be critical of the way you're operating, because although we might feel self-critical and we're doing things right or wrong, sometimes it takes a different perspective to say, what on earth are you doing? Stop. You're wasting your time. You're bashing your head against a brick wall. And that's what these guys were great at. And quite often I'd say, no, I'm sure if I keep hitting my head against this wall, it's going to work eventually. So you need to have mentors around you, or people who will give you the advice to tell you to stop smacking your head against the wall. And these are the guys definitely to lean into, because I'm sure I would not still be here, self-employed and employed, if it wasn't for these guys.
So our experience is obviously slightly different, because there's three of us. So if we need to discuss anything, we can discuss it with each other. But in terms of what we've really found useful, and what I particularly find useful, is I offload a lot to Reese. So I mean, we had a talk last week, and the first sort of 20 minutes of the conversation was just me offloading all the issues we've had. And I mean, sometimes there's nothing you can really do, but it does make a lot of difference being able to offload everything, because you can't offload to your employees, because you need to kind of stay in that management role. I can offload to Ali and Lily, but again, they're in it with me. They're down in the trenches with me, if you like. So you need to be able to offload that to someone else. So that's really the biggest benefit that we get from mentoring.
Thank you very much. You're all far too kind, by the way. I sit taking a salary in the easy option while I listen to the difficulties. But no, so I think that's really interesting about sort of listening to people and getting their views and their opinions. And sort of another question just from me is, in terms of scaling, I'm always interested in, obviously we all start from small and we all want to potentially grow and want to move forward. But obviously there's challenges with that, whether that's how you do it, where you do it, how you get the funding to do that. So sort of from that perspective, as you've grown, how have you managed to sort of stay to a point where you're not getting too high in the highs and not too low in the lows? So you're able to sort of regulate from that perspective.
So Reese actually prepped me that this question was coming up, because he knows we get too high in the highs and too low in the lows. At the start, we were particularly bad at this. We grew really, really quickly, and we were just basically on a permanent high. And then as soon as we had our first low, I mean, I'll be honest, we put the business up for sale as soon as we had our first low, and we kind of just panicked, and we were like, let's just take as much as we can from it. And as we go further on in the business, we're a lot better at regulating it, just through experience, really, and being able to pivot to different sectors. Or, I mean, like I say, we've just brought out an app, so we were realizing that the income we were getting every month, we were having to get new customers every single month, which is obviously a lot more expensive than retaining a customer. So we brought out the app, and it's a subscription-based model. So it's all about being able to pivot, really, and just calling upon your experience. And I keep saying it, but there's 3 of us, and we can always go to each other if we've got an issue. And it's more of an obsession. I think you have to be obsessed with your business. I mean, first thing I do in the morning is check our sales from overnight. I check it maybe, too much, 20 times a day. Just how are we actually performing today? Because we need to consistently make sales or we don't have the business. So I think it's just calling upon your experience, really.
I'm only a little business.
Yeah.
Highs and lows. Obviously, it's inevitable that I've had quite a lot of highs and lows throughout this business. And whether or not that you're a small business, an independent like myself, I am actually putting somebody through training at the moment. For me, it's about keeping perspective of the bigger vision, and accepting that highs and lows are part of every solid business journey. And again, I know it may sound like I've been paid by Enterprise, and I probably should be on commission, but because I don't have a large network around me, it is about making sure there are people that can provide the support that you need, that can give you perspective, because what you perceive as a low, a lot of my allied colleagues folded their businesses when we went into lockdown, and just through discussions, instead of getting down in the trenches and just giving up, there were people that dragged me out. So you've got to just make sure you surround yourself with, well, not just you guys, but you're pretty good at what you do.
Yeah, so for me, this is a really odd thing to say. Before I got into business, I worked a lot on my personal mindset and resilience, which is completely subjective to what I need to make in a business to make it work. And I honestly think I almost every day look forward to a low, because I feel like at that point I start to think about ideas in which I can make my business even better. So I'm actually scared of highs. I love to see a high for sure, because that's what I'm striving for. But I also try and figure out ways in which I can become better. And sometimes I can't control the idea of something going wrong, right? But if it does, mentally, I get challenged to think about new ways in which I should start thinking about ways in which to improve my business. So when I've had really, lows, I'll tell you a big low is the biggest client we have now, which is 60% of our revenue. I lost that client in my second year of business. And fortunately, with my dad, Simon, I had that conversation with him. We analyzed why I lost that business. And I was so focused on trying to deliver a good job very fast, but the job wasn't what they wanted. And I just wanted to give them the job and say, this is what you should be doing, see you later. But then I learned at that point, I should really pay attention, not to my ego, not what I think looks pretty on a video because I'm a cinematographer, but actually what really is going to make a difference for my client. To be in there with the trenches and make sure what they want. So for a product, it's like, what does the customer actually want? How does that product actually help them? And that becomes really subjective, because it's no longer about me, it's about the client. How do you, for BrewDog, how do you make sure moisturizer doesn't leave me dry? Because, it for sure has to really work for that person. And so my lows are quite interesting, because I feel the emotion of being quite upset. But then I sit back and look at every single element that really got me to that place of feeling in that way. And I sort of use that as my motivation to become better. And so every huge step back I've had, and maybe it's a lesson, and I guess, I don't know whether this is any value for anyone, but every big step back that I've had has actually elevated my business when I've accepted the low and really gone to attack it, and been very vulnerable about why I messed up, And, the good news is we got that client back, and that client is now 60% of our business, because we're able to come back and show a different side to what we do, and we do more for them now. So that's my answer.
So you all talk very passionately about your business, and like you just said there, what you said, what did I do wrong? So you're taking that personal accountability, but obviously longer term, you're taking on staff, and you need to entrust your employees to be responsible for areas. So can you just tell us a bit about how it was taking on staff and entrusting them to fulfill the duties on your behalf? And if you haven't yet, how you feel about that sort of delegation of responsibilities?
Yeah, I think what for me personally, but taking on staff, we're quite lucky. We're a team of 5, all full time, and I try to make as many mistakes as I could myself, so I understood what it's like to be in their shoes. And so when I speak to when we're taking people on, I'm very transparent about what my expectations for the business is. And I don't speak so at this high pedestal. I say, hey, these are the things that have worked really well for the business, so it's relatable to them. But I'm also quite flexible in things that aren't perhaps seen as normal in the industry. So I guess in a way, taking someone on, it has a lot of trust, but you also have to leave some room for them to do stuff. So I don't try and do everything. I try and show them how to do it, and then also leave them to take it to where they feel they can. And when they need my help, I'm transparently open with the door to say, please make mistakes. You know, that's what I tell Lauren, who you joined recently in finance, which, you know, the worst department to make a mistake. But I say, at least go for it and we'll learn the lesson. And one of our invoices was sent without VAT most recently, and it was quite a high invoice. And part of me was like, what do you think you're doing? But the other part was like, you know, she's made a mistake. That we're going to work through it, and she'll learn. And that's never, you know, it's not something she ever does before. And since then, she's improved and made other systems I never would have made before, which have really like helped elevate and also allow me to trust her even furthermore. So, does that answer the question?
Yeah, so kind of we rely on our staff massively. To put it in perspective, probably last Christmas, over half of our revenue was generated from 2 people. So for us to bring in the right people, it's well, Tom does it, but it's one of his most important jobs, and Lily as well. But we're kind of very lucky in the sense that we spoke to Uni of Lincoln very early on and said, look, we need to bring someone in to create content for us, but it's a bit of a risk bringing someone on part-time, full-time, whatever it was. And they said, look, we'll pay 110 hours to bring someone on for you, and if they're good enough, you can keep them, which we did, and she's now our marketing manager, and we trusted with absolutely everything. And then we realized, okay, well, if Uni or Lincoln are doing this, then every uni must be doing this. So Tom's basically in the emails of every single uni every half year. So we get someone on for 110, some unis do 500 hours, and it basically gives us a trial run as well as the employee, because we get to know if we trust them and if they kind of see a return for us, but it also gets them to know us and see if it's the right fit. So yeah, 100%. Like we need to trust our staff 100%, because we're over half our revenue comes from TikTok, and they're creating the content. So yeah, it was a massive thing for us to learn to hire people that we trust.
Yeah, I think I'm always here for the small business. So
We need them all.
I'm not looking to obviously scale my business, certainly not anywhere ever going to touch what you guys are doing. But also, as I said, I am putting somebody through their training, and that is me putting my reputation in their hands, because I actually only work on referral now. I don't advertise. Anyone who's attempted to find my social media will realise that my presence is next to none, but actually I'm at the point where I can't afford to take any more clients. So although I will be accommodating another therapist, we're going to have to choose how we address that moving forwards. And that's probably about me stepping back with some of my clients, handing them over or building them, because at the minute I have what is very much a passive income from something that is almost I enjoy doing it. Things like the exercise at night was a job I didn't foresee. And then the clinical work that I still work weekends and evenings. I'm not going to say it's not a real job, because it's a very real job, but it's not something I'm going to scale to the heights of these guys. So guess who I'm going to be calling for advice?
Thank you very much. No, thank you. So I think just another question from me, and then we're taking it to the audience then. Fantastic. So I think a big thing for me is about relationships with people, and not just building them, because I think that can be the easy bit, the getting to know someone. It's the maintenance of those relationships when you might not always see that person, you might not always, be in contact, but also if you're keen to build your business. So, thinking about you've got very individual businesses in the sense, but for example, if you were thinking like VitMe, so, if you were to say, I want to go into retail stores, and you never know, there might be someone here who's got into Boots and Superdrug and other supermarkets who might be able to open those doors. But how would you go about that? Because it's notoriously difficult to do that and to build those, and thinking for you to go to the record labels, to find the right person, to then maintain that. What are your tips for our students and graduates to be able to say, look, this is how you need to approach it? Is it networking? Is it sort of the follow-up and those kind of things? So what would your advice be for building personal relationships with people?
So my advice would be to be yourself completely, because I think people in my space, especially the record industry, want to trust people who are consistent, people who don't lie, people who are trustworthy. And so they meet lots and lots of people. As you can imagine, say someone like KSI has worldwide fans, and he meets everyone on a daily basis. I mean, people are fighting for his drink at the moment. So you can just imagine, to be in that space, you need to be someone that's quite relatable to his team. Because if you're looking for, I guess, even in a product, if you're looking for someone to take your product into a shop, for example, your product has to look like it fits in a Boots, if that's where your product's going. If you're looking to start up a business that is tech savvy, then it has to fit the market. So I very much felt in my heart and my soul that I generally really loved music. I mean, I was doing backflips when I was at university, dancing on this very stage. So it's something that's been embedded in me. And from where I come from, born and bred in Zambia, I was dancing. I was fascinated by music. So I feel like if you're trying to build relationships and maintain relationships, then go in there to also find friends. I want to be around the marketing managers at Atlantic Records, because I generally feel like they understand me as a person. And I think if you're in there for example, there are a lot of people who go to record labels to try and find a record deal, but pretend to go find a record job. They see that immediately and think you're not transparent, and those doors close faster than they opened. And I think you have one opportunity with people. And so I would say, huge advice, and this one's the one for me when I see individuals, when I speak to friends, and how I essentially interact with people, is be yourself. Don't try and be someone else. Don't try and put on a different phase of, because you saw someone else do it on YouTube and you think that's the appropriate way to be, because those people will smile and say, yeah, great, good, nice to meet you. They don't like that they met you. Or they'll interact with you because they feel like you're yourself. And so that's what I'd say. That's how you maintain a relationship. And if that relationship doesn't work, it's just not a like for like. They don't like you because of what you were, and maybe you smell. It's fine, no problem. But that's how I feel. I think relationships are authentic and they're based on you as an individual without trying to be someone else.
So for us, it's obviously slightly different again, because we're direct to consumer. So we don't need to really, at the minute, create any relationships with retailers or whatever. But that is something we do want to do in the future. But I think it's more about, you create relationships with everyone that you really come across in business. And I think it's about creating the opportunity for yourself. So you've probably already been told before, but maintain your LinkedIn, because, I mean, Alistair's met investors who've invested in us purely through LinkedIn, because he's got a presence on there and people know what's going on all the time. So it's about putting yourself out there, and it is about creating the opportunity. And when you get it, take it. Don't be nervous. We, at the start, were incredibly nervous. We would have been really nervous to do this a year ago. But now speaking in front of people doesn't bother us. And I think you just develop the skills over time. But it is about throwing yourself in and taking every single opportunity. If you get the opportunity to speak to anyone who could change your business, then you have to do it. Even speak to people who may not change your business, but they will turn out to add something. And there's not many people that I've spoken to that haven't added anything at all to us that have been a waste of time. Even when we were selling the business and we were speaking to brokers, and you have to create the relationship with the broker who's going to be selling your business, we had meetings that we would have felt were a waste of time at the time, but looking back, maybe it was kind of telling us that we shouldn't sell it. So I think every single relationship or communication you have with anyone can be worthwhile.
I think just literally, like I say, different interactions, but my clients is obviously very up close and personal on a therapy level. Authenticity is everything. Don't try and fit into somebody else's mold. And I would say it's okay to accept that you're probably not the right person for a retailer or somebody who's come to me for therapy, and it's okay to build networks so that you can refer out. That actually maintains your reputation more than anything. You know, I'm not the one that can help you in this instance. However, I do know somebody that probably can.
Thanks, Tina. So I think we're going to open it up to questions. Now, I'm going to ask my esteemed colleague, Brad, to come up to the stage, if you don't mind doing the microphone for us. Yes, I'm looking at you, Brad. Don't look behind you. If you don't mind helping. So if you've got a question, could you put your hand up? Sorry, Brad, I have sprung this on him without him knowing. But I know, you literally look behind you. I was like... So have you got a hand up?
Cheers. Hi, may I just say I thought it was really interesting and I feel like I learned a lot. And from that, you're all incredible entrepreneurs, do incredible things. I'd really like to know what motivates you, you know, what brings that drive, because I try and do some work on the side of uni, like you're mentioning earlier, and I find sometimes it can be just so difficult to balance, but not only balance, but find that motivation. And I think you have to look deeper to like the why. So, you know, what is your motivation? What is your why?
I think I can kind of speak for Tom and Lily as well. It sounds really cliche, but just freedom, to be honest. We're not really too bothered about money. We definitely haven't made a lot of money. We hope to in the future, but it's just freedom and time. I would say that's the biggest motivator for us. And also, obviously, building a brand is really cool. Like a really fun thing to do, but mainly, yeah, freedom.
I think there's a lot of reasons for me doing it. There's probably a chip on my shoulder, probably, but I think one vision I always have is like just a road that I can walk in on my own. So similar to you, freedom in a sense. The idea of me creating my own path and leaving something as a legacy, especially now that I've got a 1-year-old, it's amazing to be motivated by that. So, but even before I had the 1-year-old, I had a vision of trying to put my family in a certain type of lifestyle, and also to be happy within myself. I recognize the value of happy based on, you know, history with my parents and stuff, and it's internal, isn't it? So for me, I dive quite deep in there and think, you know, how do I envision my life? And how do I want to feel? And the thing that does ring for me is I don't have an option but to make this business work, because if I don't do it, I'll never really feel how I'll never get the opportunity to be truly authentic to myself. And so that's my gut instinct on a daily basis of making business decisions generally, because I feel like I have to follow that gut, because that's the thing eventually that's going to give me a little bit of peace if I get a chance to get a holiday anytime soon and sit down and relax. Or it's the difference of feeling like I'm making really bad decisions and having a sense of anxiety or sense of feeling like I'm doing something I really hate. So for you, I'd say in the early stages is just try and spend a bit more time, in my opinion, journaling how you're feeling and what's driving you. Because that really, honestly, it helped. It changed the world for me. Honestly, I look at my journal from 2017, and it's ridiculous how honest I was and how I compare that, because that vision's become true because I was writing down how I actually really feel. You will be massively tempted to follow a straightforward road of just getting a job and just getting paid. And that's totally fine. That's amazing, because for some people that's really needed. But if there really is an urge for you to not do that and just be following your own path, I think take the chances, especially when you're young. It's going to be rough. I was speaking to my guys yesterday saying people don't realize how rough it really was starting Firmative, because no one believed in it. And you know, we had a conversation about race and racism, and I had to go through a lot of doors that I wasn't welcome in, and I'd sit there and have a massive chip on my shoulder because I knew that some of the doors weren't opening because I was a different skin tone to someone else. And so when those doors are pushed because that's what you want to do, eventually it has to happen. You know, there isn't any other choice. That's what I'd say. If you really are passionate about it, you don't have a choice. Make it work.
Yeah, I second that on journaling. Ali and Lily laugh at me for doing this, but I journal every single night, and I write down where I want to be in a year's time from today. And it kind of sounds silly, but you have a focus then every single day. You wake up every day and you're like, how do I get there? How do I actually get to that position? It's the same for me as if I was to go on Excel and create a forecast for our sales. That I'm doing that with my life effectively. I'm saying this is where I want to be. The two things that I would say in terms of how do we stay motivated, it's we all had part-time jobs that we hated, and when you're there and you're working, I mean, I worked at the co-op. I mean, nothing against the co-op, but I hated doing it. And when you're there, and I was at work, and I was thinking, I really want this to work for Legless because I can't do this. I hate it. And then there was a second thing. Oh, regret. When we came to selling the business, Ali kind of sat me and Lily down and he said, I don't really want to sell it now. And his reason was because I don't want to regret where it could be in a year. And it was a case of, look, we've got one more project. And if we do this project and it fails, then yeah, we'll sell it, but we'll have no regrets that we didn't try. And I think that's probably the main motivator for us.
Yes,
I think just being a little bit older, blatantly, the one thing I will say is you've got to hold yourself accountable. So I've been self-employed in my youth and very profitable. Had the luxury of living abroad for 6 years. But if you don't take accountability but also establish a goal, then how do you know if you're moving towards it? And also I think something that I actually said in a lecture, just one of those random things, I said to some of the students, you need to treat, your learning journey, so in this case, your contribution towards your self-employment journey, like a sat-nav, and don't always want to take the fastest route because it doesn't necessarily get you there any better or any quicker. There are going to be detours. Sometimes you need the slow and steady and the detours and the roadblocks to actually end up where you're meant to be. So don't just think it's and be accountable, because if you're not putting the legwork in now, trust me, you probably may as well go and get that job that comes with a P45, because it ain't easy. It's lonely sometimes, isn't it?
Yes, thank you so much. I've learned a whole lot. I have questions, one for each of you. Hope you don't mind. You said you have 3 jobs, so my question is, how do you balance the 3 jobs? Online, lectures, the other business, and then your personal life. How do you create a balance even with your kids? For Dumi, can I ask at once or separately?
Separate, I'll forget.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
So in terms of balancing jobs, being a parent, if I'm being honest, I think it probably is naturally in my character. I'm very defiant. I've always been, if somebody tells me I can't, then I will find a way. ultimately, same thing when I was studying. I did 5 years full-time at uni. My children were, 5, 7 when I started, and I was working 48 hours a week. So I'm very determined, but I also had a very good support network around me, which I still have. But I also am very good now at compartmentalising my roles, i.e. when I am working for the university, when I am working online, because like I say, that's very passive because it keeps me doing my annual or my weekly exercise for the government guidelines. And then the therapy I do, I'm motivated because I have to keep my professional registration. And then at the end of the day, when I get to sit with my kids in their, our compartment as a family unit, it's enough to make me want to do it all over again. Just don't try and be everything to everyone. Just make sure you can treat almost everything in silo. Otherwise, it will, at some points, it did nearly send me a little bit crazy, if I'm honest.
Dumi, your question is this. Sorry, a person of color. How did you achieve sustainability? And you said your business is about content. Sometimes there will be no content. So how do you get it on again?
So I think because our services are content, but the real foundation is my team of people are creatives generally. So we're storytellers. Coming up with content ideas sometimes feels maybe too natural because it's part of who we are and how we express, how we see the world, essentially. And the foundation of coming out with a content idea is thinking about what kind of emotion you want people to feel when they watch the video. So and this is just the way I come up with, visual treatments. I always think about what emotion do people need to get out of the video they watch online, on TikTok, wherever, what platform, and I write to that. At times we can get into the trap of thinking what video is going to go viral. There's certain rules around that, especially with TikTok. It has to be a really authentic mobile phone video shot with whatever it needs to be. That's fine. That's a viral conversation. But when you want to keep creating content, think about the emotions that you want to be your video to perceive or your content to perceive. And that could be related to design. It could be related to video, to photography. And that's where I start. What emotions do I want people to feel? And there's a thread of ideas from that,
So how did you achieve sustainability in business?
Sustainability with creating content, or
Everything, basically.
Say again, or just the general
Yes,
business?
generally.
Oh, okay. So I think sustain is just making sure you don't end up being complacent. And that comes with doing everything the best you can and delivering only the best product you can deliver. And then being really diligent about evaluating what you've just delivered. So when I deliver a project, I always go back and look at what I could have done better. And I think that maybe allows me to sustain the business on a general point of view because I'm always reviewing what we've done for the week or for the day. And I think that helps sustainability. Does that answer the question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
One more question, please. My question is to you, Tom and Cole. You talked about, I want to know your business. Did it need funding? And how did you go about your funding? Was it personal or as a group? How did you actualize the funding part of the business? When I mean fund, I mean the capital. Thank you.
So I think it cost us, the initial kind of startup fee was about £1,200, something like that. So we split between three. That was kind of manageable. We used our student loan, to be honest. And then from there, it's just been completely bootstrapped up until the point we took investment about 6 months ago when we were launching our app. But yeah, like completely bootstrapped. The most we've put in individually is £1,200. We've got loads of grants, so speak to Reese if you want some money. But yeah, like individual investment, that's purely £1,200, and then we just kind of grew with it and used the revenue generated by the business. I mean, luckily we're kind of a revenue generating business. Every month we know that we're going to be able to have X amount in the bank, so we could take calculated risks. But yeah, that's why.
Yeah, good day. That's to the founder of Formative. I wanted to ask this questions. For the company you run videos for, did you run advertisements for them inclusive of the work you do as a videographer? That's the first one. The second one is I actually checked the views on Rudiments, the These Days video. Did you shoot that video? Or what did you do exactly for them?
Sorry, I think I'm struggling to hear.
Oh, okay. Clear now. Okay. Okay, so the first one is the companies that you do videos for. Do you run advertisements for them also?
Do we shoot the videos that you show on the show reel? Is that right? Okay. Do we do them? Yeah. So
you run advertisements for them too?
I don't do all the videos. So my role is the creative director at Firmative, and what we do essentially is we've got an in-house team that can go and shoot, and I have shot some of the videos you've seen personally, but a lot of them sometimes involve a production of maybe 20 to 30 people. And what I'd do through the process is I'd essentially create the vision of what we want the video to look like, propose that to the client agrees with the vision, and I make that work within our team structure, and then we build up the team of internal structure but also external people that come in, and then within that we will create some of the videos you've seen in there. So everything that you've seen there is things that we've either worked on internally ourselves or things that we've worked on internally with our external freelancers of people. So it'd be a team of either 20 going upwards or a team of 1 person to 5, essentially. It just depends on the scale, the budget of the video, and what we want to achieve at the end of it.
Oh, okay. It means that you don't run advertisements for them. You don't run advertisements for them.
Second, sorry?
You don't run the marketing or advertisements for them.
We don't do marketing and advertising. We purely do create the content, essentially. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Also, I wanted to ask, how did you land your first jobs? How did you land your first jobs?
Okay, yes. Sorry, my ears are bad, firstly. So it's not just you. My first job was free. I think you show the value of what you can do, and people are interested to do it again. So Patrick gets paid now, but one of the things he did amazingly is I had a small CrossFit competition. He shot that video. Everyone in CrossFit, all 100 people, are asking for that video. It's going to go through the agency, but he's getting a lot of work from that, because everyone wants Patrick to shoot that same video for them. So you show the value when people pay for it, and not the other way around, I'd say, in my space.
Okay, thank you. To Legless.
Sorry, we've just got time for one more question because I think everybody's getting a bit hungry. So we just have this last question.
Okay, to the founders of Get Legless, the lady co-founder down there, she's not on stage, so I'm confused. Is she still part of the company? That's one. What was her role in the beginning when?
We basically the reason she's not on stage is because Ali and Lily recently got a puppy, and she's got to shoot off in a minute to look after the puppy. But yeah, she's still part of the business. So my role is to do kind of the operations and the financial side, and then Lily does kind of the social media and then the managing of the employees, and then Ali kind of does the general marketing of the business. But yeah, we it's definitely still 3 of us. Yeah.
Okay, so what I was asking is, from the beginning, what was a particular role? Do you have set roles, or you're just running through it?
So those roles have kind of developed. We never said at the start, this is exactly the roles that we're taking. It was more, when we started the business, everyone kind of slipped into a role that they felt most comfortable in and that they would be able to offer the most in. And these are the roles we've kind of slipped into. I'm not very good at marketing. I don't really enjoy creating content on TikTok. But Ali and Lily do. So that naturally it was their role to do that. I quite like it sounds a bit geeky, but I quite like looking at Excel. I quite like going through the finances, seeing where we can grow. So yeah, I think generally we just slipped into the role that suited us the most.